Hey everyone! You're listening to the English Connect podcast, your home for learning English through real life conversations. I am your host, Sophia, and I'm here with my amazing co host, Jason.
Hey, Sophia. Hey, everyone. Great to be with you all today.
Jason, how's your week been? Anything exciting happening?
Actually, yes. I just signed up for piano lessons, and I'm both excited and a little nervous about it.
Wait, really? That's amazing! How old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 35, and yeah, I know what you're thinking. Most people start piano as kids, right?
Well, that's actually perfect timing because it connects beautifully with today's topic.
It really does. So, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're diving into something I'm really passionate about, the idea that it's never too late to start something new, chase a dream, or make a change in your life.
This is such an important message because I think so many people hold themselves back with thoughts like, I'm too old, or I should have started years ago.
Exactly. So here's what we have lined up for you. First, we're going to have a deep conversation about age, timing, and the courage it takes to begin something new at any stage of life.
Then we'll break down 5 super useful vocabulary words and phrases to help expand your English.
And finally, we'll end with an inspiring challenge that we hope will push you to take action on something you've been putting off.
But before we dive in, if you're enjoying this podcast, please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any episodes.
And here's what I want to know from you. Comment below and tell us, what's something you've always wanted to do but haven't started yet? Is it learning a language, changing careers, traveling somewhere, starting a hobby? We want to hear your dreams.
All right, let's get into this conversation.
So, Jason, let's start with your piano lessons. What made you finally decide to start now, after all these years?
Honestly, I've wanted to learn piano since I was a kid, but my family couldn't afford lessons back then. And then, as an adult, I kept telling myself I'm too busy or I'm too old to start learning an instrument.
So, what changed?
Well, a few months ago, I saw this video of a woman who started learning violin at age 52, and she was playing beautifully after just 2 years of practice. And something clicked for me. I thought, in 2 years, I'm going to be 37 anyway. I can either be 37 and still wishing I could play piano, or I can be 37 and actually playing.
Oh my goodness, I love that perspective. That's so powerful, Jason, because time is going to pass regardless, right?
Exactly. And I realized that the perfect time I was waiting for was never going to come. There's always going to be something: work stress, financial concerns, other commitments. You just have to start.
That's such an important realization. I think a lot of people are waiting for the stars to align perfectly before they begin something, but life doesn't work that way.
Not at all. What about you, Sophia? Have you ever started something later in life that people might think you should have done earlier?
Oh, absolutely. I actually went back to university at 32 to finish my degree. I had dropped out when I was 20 because I needed to work and help my family financially.
Wow, that must have been challenging, being in classes with people who were much younger?
It was at first. I remember sitting in my first class feeling so self-conscious. I was surrounded by 18 and 19-year-olds, and I kept thinking, I'm old enough to be their older sister. What am I doing here?
But you pushed through that discomfort?
I did. And you know what? After a few weeks, I realized that my age was actually an advantage. I had life experience, better study habits, and I knew exactly why I was there and what I wanted to get from my education.
That's such a great point. When you're older and you choose to start something, you often have more clarity and purpose than when you're young.
Absolutely. The 18-year-olds in my classes were there because that's what you do after high school. But I was there because I actively chose it. That motivation made all the difference.
I think that's one of the benefits of starting things later in life. You're doing it for the right reasons, not just because it's expected or because everyone else is doing it.
Exactly. And speaking of expectations, I think we need to talk about the societal pressure around age and achievement. There's this timeline people feel they need to follow.
Oh, yes, like you should graduate college by 22, get married by 25, have kids by 30, be established in your career by 35.
Right. And if you deviate from that timeline, there's this sense that you're behind or you failed somehow. But that's completely arbitrary.
It really is. Everyone's path is different. Some people know what they want to do at 18 and follow that path their whole life. Other people don't figure it out until they're 40 or 50, and that's perfectly okay.
And some people have multiple careers and reinvent themselves several times. There's no one right way to live a life.
So true. I've been thinking about some famous examples of people who started late. Did you know that Vera Wang didn't enter the fashion industry until she was 40?
Really? I had no idea. She's such an iconic designer now.
Yep, and Julia Child didn't publish her first cookbook until she was 50. Colonel Sanders founded KFC when he was 62.
Those are incredible examples. It just goes to show that success and achievement aren't limited by age.
Exactly. And here's something I've been thinking about. What if we reframe starting late entirely?
What do you mean?
Well, instead of thinking, I'm starting late, what if we think, I'm starting at exactly the right time for me? Because the only moment you can actually start anything is now, in the present.
Oh, I love that reframe, Jason. It shifts it from a deficit mindset to an empowered one.
Right. And I think another important thing to address is fear. Because often when people say, it's too late, what they really mean is, I'm afraid.
Afraid of what, do you think?
Afraid of failing. Afraid of looking foolish. Afraid of not being as good as people who started younger. There are so many fears that hold us back.
That's so true. I remember being terrified to go back to school because I thought, what if I can't keep up? What if I fail? What if people judge me?
And how did you deal with those fears?
Honestly, I had to accept that those fears were valid, but they didn't have to control my decisions. I realized that the regret of not trying would be worse than the temporary discomfort of being a beginner again.
That's really wise. Because being a beginner is uncomfortable at any age, but especially when you're older and you're used to being competent and knowledgeable in other areas of your life.
Yes, there's an ego thing there, right? When you're starting something new, you have to be okay with not being good at it immediately.
And in our culture, there's so much emphasis on being the best, being an expert, being perfect. But learning requires being willing to be bad at something first.
Absolutely. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. They think, if I can't be great at it, why bother? But that completely misses the point.
What do you mean?
Well, the value isn't just in the end result or becoming an expert. The value is in the process itself, the learning, the growth, the joy of trying something new.
That's beautiful, Sophia. It's about the journey, not just the destination.
Exactly. Like with your piano lessons. Even if you never become a concert pianist, the act of learning and making music brings value to your life, right?
Absolutely. I've only had 3 lessons so far, but I already feel this sense of accomplishment and joy when I manage to play even a simple melody.
That's wonderful. And I bet you're not comparing yourself to Mozart or anything.
Not at all. I'm just enjoying the process and celebrating small wins.
I think that's key, celebrating progress rather than fixating on how far you still have to go.
Agreed. You know what else I think stops people? The comparison trap. They look at people who started young and think, I'll never be that good, so why try?
Oh, that's a big one. But that's such flawed logic because you're comparing your beginning to someone else's middle or end.
Right. Everyone who's good at something was once a beginner. The only difference is they kept going.
And here's another thing. Maybe you won't reach the same level as someone who started at age 5, but so what? You can still reach a level that brings immense satisfaction and enrichment.
Exactly. Not everything has to be about being the best. It can just be about being better than you were yesterday.
I love that. And I think there are actually some advantages to starting things later in life.
Like what?
Well, like we mentioned earlier, you have more clarity about why you're doing it, but also you often have more resources, financial stability, emotional maturity, better time management skills.
That's true. As an adult, I can afford piano lessons and an instrument. As a kid, that wasn't an option for my family.
Right. And you probably have better discipline and understanding of how to practice effectively because you've learned how to learn other things.
Good point. I know how to set goals, track progress, and stay motivated from other areas of my life. I can apply those skills to learning piano.
Exactly. So, in many ways, being older can actually be an advantage, not a disadvantage.
I never thought about it that way, but you're absolutely right. We bring so much to the table when we start something new later in life.
We do. And I think it's also worth talking about the different reasons people might start something late. It's not always about chasing a childhood dream.
What do you mean?
Well, sometimes it's about reinvention after a major life change, like a divorce, retirement, kids leaving home, or recovering from illness. Sometimes starting something new is about rebuilding or rediscovering yourself.
That's a really important point. Life is long, and we go through many phases. Who you are at 25 is different from who you are at 45 or 65.
Exactly. And it's okay to want different things at different stages. You're not the same person you were 20 years ago, so why should your life look the same?
Right. And sometimes the thing you start later in life is something you couldn't have done earlier, not because of age, but because you hadn't lived through the experiences that prepared you for it.
Oh, that's profound, Jason. Can you give an example?
Sure. Like someone who goes through a health crisis and then becomes a health coach to help others. They couldn't have done that at 22 because they hadn't lived through that experience yet.
That's so true. Sometimes our struggles and life experiences become the foundation for our later pursuits.
And those pursuits often have more depth and authenticity because they come from real lived experience.
Beautifully said. I think we should also address the practical concerns people have, because it's easy to say it's never too late, but people have real responsibilities and limitations.
You're right. Someone might want to change careers, but they have a mortgage and kids to support. They can't just quit their job and start from zero.
Exactly. So, what would you say to someone in that situation?
I'd say that starting doesn't have to mean dropping everything and diving in head first. You can start small. Take a class on the side, work on your new skill on weekends, save money gradually for a transition.
Yes, it's not all or nothing. You can take steps toward your goal while still meeting your responsibilities.
And sometimes the timeline might be longer. Maybe it takes 5 years instead of 1 year. But those 5 years are going to pass anyway, right?
Right. We're back to that perspective you mentioned earlier. The time will pass whether you're working toward your goal or not.
Exactly. And here's another thought. Starting something new doesn't always mean it has to become your career or your main focus.
What do you mean?
Well, I'm learning piano, but I'm not quitting my day job to become a professional pianist. It's enriching my life as a hobby, and that's completely valid.
That's such an important distinction. Not everything you start has to be monetized or turned into a career. Some things can just be for joy, for personal growth, for the sake of learning.
Absolutely. We live in a culture where everything has to be productive or profitable, but some things can just be for the soul.
I love that. And honestly, those pursuits end up being the most fulfilling because they're not attached to external validation or financial success.
So true. The pressure's off and you can just enjoy the process.
Speaking of process, I think it's important to acknowledge that starting something new later in life can be messy and non-linear.
How so?
Well, you might have periods where you make great progress and then life gets busy and you have to pause. Or you might realize partway through that you need to pivot or approach it differently.
And that's okay?
It's more than okay. It's normal. Life is complicated, especially when you're older and have more responsibilities. The path doesn't have to be perfect or straight.
That's really reassuring. I think people often give up when they hit those rough patches because they think they're failing.
But they don't. It just means they're human and living a real life, not some Instagram perfect fantasy.
Well said. I think one last thing worth mentioning is the ripple effect of starting something new later in life.
The ripple effect?
Yeah, like when you do something brave, like going back to school at 32 or starting piano at 35, you inspire other people. You give them permission to pursue their own dreams.
Oh, that's beautiful. I hadn't thought about it that way, but you're right. When people see someone they know taking that leap, it makes them think, maybe I can too.
Exactly. Your courage becomes contagious. And I think especially when you're older and starting something new, you're breaking down this myth that life is over after a certain age.
Yes, you're showing that growth, learning, and new beginnings are possible at any stage of life.
And that's such a powerful message in a world that's often obsessed with youth and early success.
It really is. I think we've covered so much ground in this conversation, Jason.
We really have. I hope everyone listening feels inspired to start that thing they've been putting off.
Me too. Because here's the truth, you're never going to feel completely ready. The timing is never going to be perfect, and you're probably going to be scared, but you can start anyway.
And who knows? Starting that thing might just change your life in ways you can't even imagine right now.
Beautifully said, Jason. All right, everyone. Now let's break down 5 useful words and phrases from today's conversation.
First up, we have deviation.
Meaning, a deviation is when you move away from a standard, expected path or norm. When you deviate from something, you're doing something different from what's typical or planned.
Example sentence: her career path was a deviation from the traditional route, but it led her to exactly where she wanted to be.
Number 2 is reframe.
Meaning, to reframe something means to look at it from a different perspective, or to change how you think about it. It's putting a new frame around an old picture, so to speak.
Example sentence: instead of seeing rejection as failure, she learned to reframe it as redirection towards something better.
Our third phrase is all or nothing.
Meaning, this describes an extreme approach where you either do something completely or not at all, with no middle ground or compromise. It's a black and white way of thinking.
Example sentence: his all or nothing attitude made it hard for him to start new hobbies because he felt he needed to be perfect immediately.
Number 4 is ripple effect.
Meaning, a ripple effect is when one action or event causes a series of other events or effects, like how a stone thrown in water creates expanding circles of ripples. It's when something has wider consequences beyond the initial impact.
Example sentence: her decision to volunteer at the shelter had a ripple effect, inspiring her friends and family to get involved in community service too.
And finally, number 5 is the stars to align.
Meaning, this phrase means waiting for perfect conditions or circumstances before taking action. It comes from astrology, where favorable planetary positions were thought to bring good luck. We use it to describe waiting for everything to be exactly right.
Example sentence: I kept waiting for the stars to align before starting my business, but I finally realized I just needed to take the first step.
Jason, this has been such an inspiring conversation. I feel so energized.
Me too, Sophia, and I'm even more excited about my piano journey now.
As you should be. Now, before we wrap up, we have a challenge for you, our amazing listeners.
Here it is. We want you to identify one thing, just one thing, that you've been wanting to do, but have been putting off because of age, timing, or fear.
It can be big or small. Maybe it's learning a language, starting a business, asking someone out, writing a book, taking dance classes, traveling somewhere, going back to school, anything.
Then, we want you to take one concrete action toward that goal this week. Just one small step.
It could be researching classes, signing up for a course, buying the supplies you need, telling someone about your dream, or setting aside time in your calendar.
The point is to move from thinking about it to actually taking action, no matter how small.
And then come back to the comments and tell us what your goal is and what step you took. We want to celebrate with you and cheer you on.
We'll be reading all your comments, and we're genuinely excited to hear what you're going to pursue.
And remember, if you enjoyed this episode, please hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late.
Your support helps us reach more people and create more content to help you improve your English and live your best life.
Before we go, let's leave you with this thought. The best time to start was yesterday. The second best time is now.
So, whatever it is you've been dreaming about, don't wait another day. You've got this.
Until next time, remember, age is just a number, and your dreams don't have expiration dates.
Take that leap, embrace being a beginner, and trust that you're starting at exactly the right time for you.
Keep learning, keep growing, and keep believing in yourself.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.